All right, this thing is live. So welcome everybody. Cheers. I guess I could have done something with the lighting. It's pretty dark, isn't it? But anyway, something to fix for next week, I guess. So I hope everybody is having a fantastic week. One of the committee meetings actually got pretty interesting this week. Here, I'm going to put some more light on. There. Our friend, District 1, Tori Jennings, well, she was back to make things miserable for everybody in the downtown business alliance. So we're going to get into that and talk about that. It was so bad, in fact, that I had to record pretty much everything she said, point by point, just so I could go over this and just show you how utterly nonsensical and ridiculous she can be. So, fun stuff. We'll get into that. Whoa, that beard. Why, thank you. Yes. It's going to be getting shaved, though, soon. So, enjoy it while you can. It's getting warm out there, and I got to get rid of this luscious man fur. I mean, it's not much to look at. It's pretty white trash, actually. I'm the only one in my family that can't grow a decent beard. How does that work? That sucks. Even my mom grows a better beard than I do. So anyway, there was a couple of meetings this week in the Stevens Point government. It was the finance committee. It was the general government, whatever they call it now. It used to be the public protection committee. I will never get that down. I will never say the right name for that thing, I swear. So there was that one. There's actually not a lot to talk about this week. So, I mean, the finance committee was all like pretty straightforward stuff. All they did was talk about how they want to hire, or not finance committee, I'm sorry, personnel committee. They talked about how they want to hire a new person for the transit department. They talked about, they're going to buy another parcel of land. That came up in one of the committees. The personnel committee, they talked about how they're going to put together this market survey, this pay plan market survey. And they've done this in the past. And basically all that is they do a survey of towns of like relatively the same size as Stevens Point to kind of get an idea for what they should be paying city employees. Of course, there's really no way to tell what you should be paying a city employee. Like you don't, in the public sector, you don't have the kind of profit loss mechanism that gives you an idea for what you should be paying employees of any kind. So it's all guesswork, really. It's all guesswork. They don't really know what city employees are worth, honestly, because there's no profit loss mechanism. It's just, they're completely guessing. And what they do is they look at places like Wisconsin Rapids and Marshfield were brought up as being really good for paying their city employees. But there's not a lot of talk about why that is. But Melissa Johnson, who is like a big supporter of city government and wanting to pay city employees a lot of money, she said that she doesn't want to do these market surveys just to put together a plan that lets the city government know that they're paying their employees okay. Like she wants to be like the best employer in central Wisconsin. Like she said that during the committee meeting. And you know what? If you hold that view of government, then yeah, you're going to say that. But, there's probably a reason that they can't pay their employees as well as Rapids or Marshfield. I don't know what that reason is, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of discussion about like looking into why that is. Maybe Stevens Point is paying for too many things that it shouldn't be. Just throwing that out there. That could be a possibility. Anyway, I'm not going to get too much into that. They do this often. They hire a firm to do this survey, and then they use the survey to determine how they're going to pay their employees. Lori Marks said, I heard that. Oh, my beard comment about how my mother can grow a better beard than I can. Yeah, well, I mean, it's true. So what else happened? Not much. They made some changes to their tobacco use policy. You know, stuff like that, like making changes to like the tobacco policy and things like that. Like if the city wants to do that, that stuff is fine. Like do that stuff all day long. Like I don't have a problem with it as far as it goes. You know, I would prefer there was no city government to have these kinds of conversations, but it is what it is, right? So that's what they talked about. There's nothing there, nothing interesting whatsoever. All of the fire and all of the controversy happened during the Finance Committee. And what was it about? It was about granting the Stevens Point Alliance, like the Downtown Business Alliance, $5,000 to advertise events. That's what they have a big problem with. And as you're going to see in a minute, Tori Jennings, our favorite alder person from District 1, led the charge on that. The mayor also said some things that I'm going to spend some time rebutting tonight too, because look, I like the mayor. I think he's a cool guy. I have zero problem with him at all. But I do have a political disagreement. I have a disagreement as far as political philosophy goes on this point, and we're going to talk about that. I think he was way off the mark with his comments. So we'll get into that a little bit. And that's just going to come as a result of our competing political ideologies, right? Obviously, he leans to the left. Most people on the city council lean left. Doesn't mean they're bad people. I'm sure I don't agree with Makira or Thomas Leak on their politics, but I know for a fact, I know them both personally, and I know for a fact that they're both great human beings. The mayor too, I like the guy. Have a disagreement. So I will be, but you know who I don't like? I don't like Tori Jennings. I don't like her as a person. And I have been following all of this city council stuff since I decided to run last year for the council seat. And following her, I always just kind of gave her the benefit of the doubt. I was like, you know, okay, I don't agree with her politics. That's obvious. Her politics stink for sure. But, you know, I didn't have anything to say about her as a person. But as time went on, and I watched her on the council, and I watched her personally attack me over an issue. And the way that she tries to make arguments that are based on a lot of misinformation and implication, as we're about to see. I think if you do that as a person, you're a liar. That makes you a liar. That makes you manipulative. And it makes you untrustworthy. And that's who Tori Jennings is as a person. The problems that I have with Tori Jennings are not just problems I have with her politics, which stink for sure. But again, I have problems with a lot of people's politics on the city council. And yet, as human beings, I know that they're good people. So yeah, we're going to get into that. So the Finance Committee, the first thing that they did, we'll browse through all this stuff, is that they want to put together a proposal to relocate people from Edgewood Manor, which is closing up shop. The city had control of this thing for 40 years, I think it was, 41 years. And apparently they can't keep a building maintained for 40 years. You know, anybody who drives by the Edgewater Manor, that building does not look old at all. It looks like it's perfectly usable. City couldn't maintain it for whatever reason. The people downtown who run their businesses, who maintain those 100-year-old buildings, can maintain them just fine. City government can't do anything with the building past 40 years, apparently. That's how ineffectual that they are. So they're going to put together a proposal. They want to hire out some contractors to help people move. Fine, whatever. That's fine. I guess if you're the city government and you're going to kick people out of their homes because you failed to maintain their property, yeah, you better come up with a way to help them, really. So there was that, and the city is acquiring another parcel of property. This property has like $24,000 in back taxes, which means nothing to me. It just means that, they're not paying their tribute to the county and the city and the school district and the tech college. It's what all the property taxes are for. Most of the property taxes are for the school district. But anyway, they're behind in their back taxes. I'm not exactly sure if they seized the property because of that. I don't think that was really made clear. I guess that's something I could look into. I'm not really that interested in getting too deep into it. All we need to know is that they're buying another parcel of land, taking control of another parcel of land. So what'll happen is they'll take and it's 1700 Strongs Avenue. So what they'll do is they will take control of this piece of land and they will sit on it and wait for a developer to put together, like with the Fox Theater, right? They'll put together some kind of plan for what they want to do with that parcel and submit it to the city council, and the city council will probably sell it to them for $1 or $2, right? Like they did with the Fox Theater. That kind of pissed off a lot of people. Speaking of the Fox Theater, did you all see the picture somebody posted on the Stevens Point Happening Now page on the inside? All the graffiti. I'm proud to say I know somebody who had a hand in some of the better looking graffiti in that building, and you'll never know who it is. I do. And to that person, I don't know if they're watching now, but if they see this in the future, congratulations on getting famous, for having your artwork on display for the whole town to see. And I mean, it's not bad artwork compared to the other graffiti in there. It looks pretty decent. So you did a good job with your graffiti, and you should take some pride in that. Okay, anyway. Oh, and it was interesting too, because some people were tagging dates in there, and some of the dates in there were from like the 60s. Has that theater been closed that long? I guess I was under the impression that it was operational up until about 20 years ago or so. And I guess I'm just wrong about that. Because some of the dates that were tagged in there were pretty old. And people put their names in there, which I thought was interesting. It would be fun to look some of those names up on Facebook and get them on this stream to talk about their adventures in graffitiing the inside of the Fox Theater. Some people didn't like it. Obviously, some of the comments were like, "Oh, who would do such a thing?" Blah blah blah. Look, it's an abandoned building. In theory, I'm against vandalism too, but you got bored kids in this town that are going to do stuff like that. Is it right? No, I'm not saying it's right at all, but it's going to happen. But anyway, side note, I just thought that was interesting. Somebody shared that. Thought it was pretty cool. Nice little look back into the history, Stevens Point's history. Okay, so Finance Committee. I'm going to get pretty detailed with this, so bear with me if you don't want to watch it. I think I will cut this piece out and just post it on Facebook when I'm unbanned. I will upload it just as kind of like a standalone part, because I want Tori herself to see this. If there's any way that she can, I hope she does, because she needs to hear stuff like this. And a lot of other people that sit on the city council are just too nice. They're not going to say the things that I'm going to say. So Rosalind says, I think it was closed in the 80s. Okay, so it's been closed a lot longer even than I thought. See, I thought it closed in the early 90s. So, okay, I'm off base with that. So the big controversy on the finance committee this month was whether or not the city should give $5,000 to the Stevens Point Business Alliance, which is an organization that I looked at their website and I counted 52 businesses that are a part of this alliance. I don't know if there's more than that just aren't on the website, or if there's less than that. I counted 52. Okay, so ultimately, this $5,000 that they're trying to get amounts to like $96, like a $96 tax credit for each one of those businesses. We're talking about businesses that pay literally tens of thousands of dollars in property taxes every year. They're asking for $5,000 of their own money, by the way, back for advertising of events that they put on downtown. I think a lot of this is important to point out, and I think a lot of people don't understand this. The Stevens Point city government does not put on most, if not all, of the events that happen downtown. That is the Downtown Business Alliance. They're the ones that do that. Stuff like Corn on the Curb, Rock the Dock, the Holiday Parade. That's not a city thing, guys. This is all put on by the Downtown Business Alliance, all right? The thing that they started, was it last year or the year before, where it's called Notes at Night, where they have like the live bands downtown on the square, and you can go and sit down there and have a drink and listen to music. Such a cool idea. That's not the city that's doing that. That is the Downtown Business Alliance that's doing that. All of the good things that you love and enjoy about downtown is put on by the Business Alliance, not the city government, okay? The city government issues the permits, whoop-de-doo. But they don't plan and do everything downtown. That's the business people. On top of, the 60 plus hours that most of them work in a week. They're planning this stuff and putting it on for our benefit, okay? So I just wanted to make that very clear to people who don't really understand that. This is not the city who puts these things on. These are the businesses downtown that put these things on. So all they wanted was, so it was a woman named Kelly from Sunset Point Winery, who was kind of like the spokesperson, who was saying what they wanted to do, what the plan was. They just kind of wanted a little bit of money for advertising and everything. We all know that last year was a complete bust, all right? A lot of businesses really got screwed last year, and, there wasn't a lot that the city did to help that. I take that back. The mayor would have you believe that the city bent over backwards to make things as accommodating as possible for the downtown businesses. We're going to talk about that, and that's where my disagreement with the mayor comes in. Anyway, that's it. Kelly said in her presentation that the downtown businesses put in about $20,000 a year to put on these events. They spend $20,000 a year to put on these events. And a lot of that has to do with the permitting that they have to pay for. Y'all know how I feel about permitting. Not a big fan, but they have to pay for the permits. They have to pay for the insurance. And so Jeremy Slawinski was the first one to speak on this. The most fiscally conservative person on the council, mind you, was the first person to jump in and say, I think this is great. We should definitely do this. Let's give them some money and just try to help them out a little bit for a change. The downtown businesses, they spend all of their efforts helping the city out. It's a very one-way street when it comes to that kind of stuff. Again, the mayor is going to agree with me, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So Mr. Slawinski, big fan of it. Polly Dalton seconds it. She comes in. She's a big fan of it. Of course she is, because she's smart. She understands. and she wanted to do something to help them out as well. So she came in, she was a big fan. Then, Tori Jennings, she comes in and she's going to tell us all the reasons why this is a bad idea. Okay. Now, the first thing she says when she comes into this meeting is that she is frustrated that alders who have never attended these downtown business meetings are so quick to speak in support of it. Okay. And she says they have no idea what goes on in these meetings. Okay. She doesn't bother telling us what goes on. She just wants to throw out that obviously manipulative phrase to make you think that not everything is on the level, okay? She just throws that out there and doesn't back it up with anything. They don't know what goes on in these meetings. Well, what does go on in these meetings, Tori? Why don't you make me understand, make everybody else understand what goes on in these meetings that you're so concerned about? She doesn't do that. So, right off the bat, I don't like where this is going at all, because Tori Jennings is just showing more of her misinformation, misleading, implying things that aren't true, implying bad things, I should say. Already, I don't like where this is going. So she goes on to say, we know what goes on at these meetings because she attends the meetings, right? Like, she knows, she's a part of it. And then she says, I'm going to sound like a really bad person for saying this. Well, all right, Tori, self-awareness. Good. You're working on that. You're understanding that you are sounding like a bad person. Maybe not quite understanding you are, in fact, a bad person, but you're understanding. All right, you're getting there. And again, she goes on to say, I know what goes on, and it's all very frustrating. This is now the third time she hasn't even made any kind of argument yet. And 3 times she's insinuated that there's something shady going on behind the scenes. Again, Tori, what are they doing? Are they eating babies? Are they sacrificing virgins? What is happening that you're so concerned about behind the scenes? That's what I would like to know. She just wants to imply, though. She just wants to imply something shady is happening, okay? Thanks for that, Tori. And then she starts to get into her points. Points, all right, her arguments. Now, she goes on to say that she's opposed to the request, and our job as council members is to make sure that we are being responsible for taxpayer money. Tori Jennings is saying this. Tori Jennings, she will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and hundreds of more thousands of dollars when her little pet projects go over budget. Suddenly, she's become the most fiscally conservative member of the city council because she doesn't look. Let's be honest here. Tori Jennings does not like business people at all. She doesn't like entrepreneurs. She doesn't like businesses. She does not like the private sector at all. And she's always made it very clear, I think. But now she's just coming right out, and it's so obvious what is happening here. And it's rage-inducing, actually, because I know how hard the people downtown work to accommodate and to make things so wonderful for the people of Stevens Point. And to have this parasite come in and start implying things like this and suddenly turn into the world's biggest hypocrite. We're not talking bike lanes. We're talking about helping business people here, people that actually provide value to our city. Now suddenly she's going to turn around and say, nope, we need to be responsible with taxpayer money. Go to hell, lady. Seriously. That is disgusting. All right. And if I were sitting on that council, I would have called you out on the spot. Disgusting thing to say. Anyway, now she makes one good point out of all this, and I'm good for her anyway. Like it's not convincing in any way, but at least it's some semblance of a counter argument. The only one she makes, by the way, and that's to say, the downtown businesses haven't provided us with any kind of proposal. Okay, they haven't brought forth a proposal, and they didn't. By the way, she's right; they didn't. They just requested some money for advertising. But what she wants to see is a complete breakdown, dollar for dollar, for what they're going to use the money on, what kind of results they are trying to get back, what kind of return on investment, things of that nature. Things that she, as a council person, never has to do when it comes to administration of government, right? She doesn't have to do that because government doesn't have to give any accounting for showing any kind of return on investment whatsoever. They never do. If they start to get low on money, what do? They steal more of yours. That's how they operate. That's how she operates. That's the world she lives in. And again, she's going to turn around and say, you didn't give us a proposal. You don't have a breakdown and a cost analysis and blah, blah, blah. Again, from people who are volunteers in this organization, by the way. People who are already working their asses off every day to run their businesses, and then to have this meeting on top of it to make sure that they can put together all these events for everybody else. Okay. Most of these people don't have time for this stuff. Okay. They're not marketers. I mean, in the sense of giving detailed line by line dollar amounts for how they're going to use this money in their marketing. Okay. Like most of these people aren't that, nor can most of them afford to hire it, again, because the city government, you're taking $10, $15, $20,000 a year from these people for what? I don't know. What? Again, I take that back because the mayor answered that. And again, we're going to get into that. Anyway, back to Tori. So the one thing that she said that almost approached making a point was the proposal argument. But again, all it does really is show that she's a hypocrite again. So the next thing she has to say is they want taxpayers to pay for their events. They want taxpayers to pay for their events. Like, what does that even mean? Like, obviously she wasn't listening to Kelly from Sunset Point Winery. Like, she didn't listen to her when she said that the business owners spend about $20,000 downtown. That didn't come from the taxpayers. That came from the downtown businesses. Okay. So yeah, they want the taxpayers to pay for their events. Okay. But what the taxpayers never do is pay for her hundreds of thousands of dollars of pet projects. They don't do that. She would never subject the taxpayers to something like bike lanes, redevelopments that nobody asked for or wanted. She would never subject the taxpayers to that because she is trying to be responsible with taxpayer money. And by the way, I hate that phrase, taxpayer money. Yeah, it's taxpayer, like it's our money. It's not yours, okay? But she thinks that she has ownership of all that money anyway. Most people in the government do. But it's theft. It's stolen money. It's looted money. That's all it is, okay? So, whatever. She also goes on to say, and again, it's a point that remotely approaches a legitimate argument. It's not, but it approaches it. And she says, well, there's multiple business districts. There's the east side and the south side and the north side. Are we just going to start giving money to them too? To which I say, yeah, why not? Give them some of their money back as well. There's no reason why you shouldn't. Again, You stole that money. Okay. And that's not yours. All right. That doesn't belong to the taxpayers. It belonged to the people you stole it from. It's all just looted money. Okay. Yeah. Give it back to them. But she doesn't like that because, again, she does not support business at all. She wholeheartedly supports government. Okay. But she doesn't like private industry at all. And that comes out over and over and over again in her statements. So, the brewery puts on events, right? They didn't last year, I don't think, because of COVID, but normally the brewery has a big event every year. And they usually get live music there. It takes place in the lot right across the street. So yeah, I mean, the brewery has events. Give them some of their money back for advertising. Tori, don't just say, well, are we supposed to do this too? Because yes, you should give it back anyway. Okay. But ultimately what it comes down to is that if we're talking just getting bodies anywhere for these massive public events, it's the downtown where everybody conglomerates, right? That's where everybody gets together and that's where all the big events in town. Now, if the South Side wants to try and get something going, all the power to them. I wish they would. I think that would be amazing. I think it would be amazing to have all the business districts competing for events. Get the South Side to do bikini mud wrestling or something like that. I'd be all for it. Just, downtown can have corn on the curb. Rookies can have bikini mud wrestling. Be perfect. So the next thing she says is, she tries to quibble about how the Downtown Business Alliance doesn't represent all the businesses. And so, it's not fair that we're just giving them specifically money for marketing their events that they put on. She doesn't like it because it doesn't represent all the business. That's like saying, Tori, you shouldn't have any authority to make any decisions for anything because you don't have the representation of all the people in your district, right? Same logic. So, like, exactly what are you insinuating here? Anybody can join the business alliance. They certainly represent themselves, if not everybody. But so what if they don't? They're the ones making the request. Like, it doesn't matter if they represent everybody or not. They're the ones making the request. So they're the only ones that you should be concerned with, not the people that they don't represent. So, I mean, I didn't really understand what she was trying to get to there, but anyway, that was another point that she made. And again, it's just one of those like really silly points where she's trying to find anything negative and wrong with this proposal that is 5,000, which is nothing, which is literally nothing compared to her massive spending projects. The other point that she makes is the wild card thing. I talked about this a lot in streams last year when the city sold the Fox Theater to Wildcard for $1. And a lot of the Stevens Point Alliance people didn't like that. And the reason for that is because they were embroiled in some kind of legal dispute with Wildcard at the time. And Wildcard had undergone some pretty shady activities, and the Stevens Point Business Alliance did not like that. And it turned into a whole court case. And, I said back then, you're kind of rubbing the Stevens Point business or the Downtown Business Alliance, you're kind of rubbing their nose into this by granting this to Wildcard with this ongoing dispute. But anyway, Tori is trying to make like Wildcard is the good guys here, and they have a problem with that, with us giving the Fox Theater to them, which again is a weird argument to make because you're basically arguing in favor of like giving businesses something, right? Giving the downtown businesses something back, right? You gave Wildcard the Fox Theater. Tori, you gave them the Fox Theater. This building that's going to turn into like this $300,000 project by the time it's all renovated and finished. And yet somehow, again, this is somehow an argument for not giving the downtown businesses what amounts to a $96 tax credit. I don't really know where she was going with that either. So one of the, I think this was the last point that she made, that the number, the $5,000 was just an arbitrary number that they were throwing out there, and she didn't like that because she didn't have all her numbers and everything else. But again, what happens when she has all of her numbers on her projects? What happens? They always go over budget to the tune of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. The bike lane project, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars did that go over budget? Wasn't it like $250,000? I don't remember exactly, but I think it was like $250,000 over budget. And that was for a project where she presumably had all of her numbers right there in front of her. Still went $250,000 over budget. But yet she's going to be Miss Fiscal Conservative. The queen of spending on the city council suddenly becomes the most fiscally conservative member of the council when it comes to $5,000. Pretty ridiculous. And by the way, that was the extent of her arguments. Nothing holds water. Absolutely nothing she said held water, with me anyway. Because again, we're talking about money that is theirs, that you stole from them, and they just want a piece of it back to do some advertising, a fraction of it back for some advertising, and you're going to quibble about this. The only reason you're going to quibble about this is because you hate businesses and you hate entrepreneurship. You hate the private sector because you're a parasite and you've always lived in the parasite sector your entire life. So yeah, I had a big problem with everything that she said. Everything. I have zero problem giving people their money back. I have zero problem with government giving people their money back, and it is their money. So, yeah, that's about all I'm going to say about Tori Jennings. I'm going to move on to the mayor here, because the mayor, again, a guy I like, but I'm going to disagree with his politics here, and I'm going to say a lot of the things that I've said already because I needed to drink. So the mayor actually agrees with Tori Jennings about this funding. So on the off chance that the mayor ever sees this video, which he probably won't, neither will Tori Jennings, but the off chance that they ever do, let me just put out a plea there, Mayor. If you ever find yourself agreeing with Tori Jennings on anything, please step back, reassess what you're saying, because you're probably going to be wrong about this. Now, again, I'm sure the mayor leans left. I don't know what his politics are, but I'm guessing he probably leans to the left. And so he's going to have ideas about government that I simply don't, or he's going to share ideas with Tori about government that I simply don't. I'm not interested in idealism. I'm not interested in like philosophical fluff, things like we are the people or government represents the will of the people. I don't buy any of that bullshit. None of it. The cold hard fact is that the city literally steals money from people in order to exist. And if you do not pay them, they will throw you in a cage. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Like, it doesn't matter what your view of government is. It doesn't matter if you think that it's like this wonderful institution that can help people who need to be helped. The cold, hard truth about government is that it is a parasite that feeds off of society. That's what it is. Whether it does good things or bad things is irrelevant. It steals, and that's it. It exists from looting the people that it can control. Every government in the world does this, from the local municipality on up. Every government does this. No government exists by the consent of the governed. That's another one that I hate. That's another catchphrase that I hate. I did not consent to be governed by anybody. Okay. So here we are, the mayor. Now, he's a little more diplomatic in the way he approaches these. Tori Jennings just goes right off the bat and says, "Oh, I'm so frustrated that people that never attend these meetings where babies are eaten and whatever I said before, sacrificing virgins, something like that. They never attended these meetings and don't know what's going on." The mayor comes out and he says, he tries to be a little more diplomatic, and he says that for all the good that the Stevens Point Business Alliance, or the Stevens Point Alliance, I think it's just Stevens Point Alliance. I keep saying Business Alliance. Doesn't matter. The city has been very responsive. That was his answer. The city's been very responsive. So good job with all the good things that you do for the community, downtown businesses, but the city has been there to help you every step of the way. And then he lists off, he's got this laundry list of things that he rattles off to put in the ice rink. We provided the labor and authority. We did it. We did it. You guys may have come up with the idea, but we're the ones who made it happen. Labor and authority. I'll get back to that. He talks about the lights that they put up down there, changing ordinances so that people can drink outside and do outdoor dining on the sidewalk, which was all response to COVID. And he goes on to say that people don't understand there's a value there as well. Now, Mayor, that list of things that you just rattled off, saying that the city did for the downtown, that doesn't sound like you helped anybody. All you did was like rattle off a list of roadblocks that the city placed in the way of all the businesses and then needed to be lifted at some point. Outdoor dining, drinking outside, those were two ordinances that needed to be changed. Why were they ordinances to begin with? Why were they? All you did was hog-tie businesses, and then when you set them kind of free a little bit, you're trying to take credit for that. That doesn't make any sense to me. You provided labor and authority. You provided authority. First of all, authority is bullshit. That's just some made up thing that somebody 100 years ago came up with and said, nobody in Stevens Point, from this day forth, nobody in Stevens Point is allowed to do anything without coming through us first. Why? You just made that shit up. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as authority. You don't have authority. You made up some authority. And if anybody tries to go over and above that and just do their own thing anyway, you'll find them and steal more of their money. That's all it is. All you have is some kind of weird abstraction in your head that other people must obey you in some way. And if they don't, you're going to use real guns to stop them or to prevent them from doing something. That's not a benefit. You giving them permission to do things downtown, all you're saying is we have roadblocks for all the businesses downtown, and they're not allowed to do things unless they come through us first. Sounds like a mafia to me, right? It sounds like it sounds like a tribute that the city is, they're pouring all of this money into the city government Again, because if you don't, they will steal your business. They will throw you on the street, or, if you try to resist, they'll throw you in a cage. Okay. That's the cold hard truth about how government operates. Government is an incredibly immoral institution. I understand a lot of people don't look at it that way, but the reality is very much that. And to come along and say, well, we let you do this, we didn't throw you in a cage for doing it, that's not a benefit. That's not a benefit at all, Mayor. So I did not like that at all. We provided the labor. Well, no, you didn't. You didn't provide the labor. You stole money from people who created this pool of wealth. You took from them, and then you paid somebody to do it. At best, you're a middleman, okay? You didn't provide the labor. Any one of those downtown businesses could have done that. They didn't need you there to do that, Mayor. You didn't provide that. No, we put up the lights and we did this and da-da-da and da-da-da. Again, all I'm hearing is the mayor say, we have all of these roadblocks set up for people downtown, and we'll decide if we lift these roadblocks or not. And we were really good last year about lifting all the roadblocks out of everybody's way. Yay, look at us. That's not value. And again, that's a really warped view of what value actually is. Okay? That's not value. You didn't create value. You created barriers. That's it. You created barriers. Now, I'm not saying mayor that you personally did this. I'm saying city government in general. So don't misunderstand me here. City government in general created barriers. They looted the public to create these barriers and to enforce these barriers with guns and cages. And then when things got really bad and they were kind of forced to lift the barriers, they pretend like they just did now suddenly they're Jesus. Get out of here. The downtown businesses do not need the city government at all. The downtown businesses do not need the city government. The city government needs the downtown businesses. It's a one-way street, okay? So let's not get confused about who the people creating the wealth and providing all the good things for the city are. Let's not forget that at all. So, and that was mainly the issue that I had with what the mayor said, because again, the mayor has this very lofty, idealistic view about what government is. I don't buy it at all. It's marketing, really. The mayor's trying to market the government. I don't buy it, but that's what he was trying to do. So, what else do I got here in my notes? Oh, and he supports Tori Jennings' statement that other businesses could use the money too. Why is it just the Stevens Point Alliance that should get this money? To which I'm going to say, then give it back to them, because it's not yours anyway. You don't rob somebody and then, I mean, they do, but from a moral standpoint, you certainly don't want to rob somebody and then sit on their money and say, oh, we'll decide which of you peasants get our money and how much. It was never your money, Mayor. It was never the city's money. It was never the taxpayers' money, okay? The money belonged to somebody, whether it was an individual like me or a business owner or any other person out there or a group of people. It never belonged to you. So, Makira Zarazua was the next one to speak. And remember Tori, how she kept saying, 4 times she said this in her statements, I attend these meetings. I know what goes on. And that's why I don't support this. And if anybody attended these meetings and saw what went on behind the scenes, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess who else's district covers a portion of downtown? And guess who else attends these meetings? Makira. And she supported this. So Tori's also lying there too, in saying that, any of the city staff that attends the meetings knows about these horrible things that go on behind the scenes. Makira is one of the people that attends these meetings, and she supported this. So again, Tori, you're a liar. And again, Makira says, this is really nothing. It's a pretty modest sum. She's right. It is. Slowinski got pissed about the whole thing. He was very audibly angry. He never appears in these Zoom meetings, okay? He's always on the phone or something, but a lot of times you can hear in his voice where he's had it with these people, okay? They want to spend money on all of these dumb projects, endlessly, and raise everybody's taxes to finance it. But when it comes back to something, for something beneficial, suddenly they tighten up, okay? And he calls them out for doing this. He talks about how the city, pours money on Create, which they do. And what have they offered? Like, they put on events too, by the way, but they're like nothing compared to what the downtown puts on. Okay, there's no, Create is more artistically oriented. So, Roslyn, are you still in the chat? Do they put on the garbage can painting thing every year? I think they do, and they do things like that. Anyway, she can say whether they do or not. But they do things like that. Things that, let's face it, most people just aren't into. Like the garbage can painting thing, that's awesome. And there's a lot of great artists in town that do a lot of good artwork. And when you're walking downtown, it definitely brightens it up. Like I like that event. I think it's a cool event, but Create does pretty great events. Well, yeah, they do, but they're artistic events. They're not events that your average Joe six-pack is going to attend, like Corn on the Curb or Rock the Dock or something like that, right? They put on events that definitely liven up the city in some way and give us something to look at and be like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. They do stuff like that. But anyway, Slowinski's point is that they bring live music to the park, garbage cans, mirror. You're right. It's all artistic stuff. But anyway, Slowinski's whole point was, you guys pour money on Create that doesn't even bring in like a fraction of the heads that the Stevens Point Business Alliance does, and they're going to quibble over $5,000, which again, yeah. So anyway, Kelly gets to speak again, and she talks about how the Business Alliance has been working with Create and the Visitors Bureau, but ultimately they have their own things going on, right? They have their own events they got to plan. The Business Bureau is like another organization that the city pours money into. They deal with Portage County as a whole. They don't deal just with downtown. And the Stevens Point Alliance deals specifically with the downtown area and doing events downtown. So that was like the whole point of this. So again, Kelly from Sunset Point Winery did a great job making a case, I thought. So the council did approve this. All they did was approve the possibility of giving $5,000 to the Downtown Business Alliance. That's what they did. So now it goes to City Council, which is Monday, if I'm not mistaken. This Monday goes to the Stevens Point City Council. They'll vote on it and decide whether the Stevens Point Business Alliance will get their $5,000. Will get their $96 tax credit, essentially, is what it comes down to. So Slowinski, Melissa Johnson, she did a great job supporting this. Polly Dalton, So kudos to those three. Kudos to those three for standing up to the insanity of the people like Tori Jennings and saying, look, these people do so much good for our community. How are you just going to piss in their face like that? It doesn't make any sense. Voting no is our second favorite alder person, David Shore, establishment candidate David Shore, who also is not a big fan of private industry and business and stuff like that. Of course, another spendy guy who suddenly becomes another fiscal concern. I hope Slowinski calls these people out in the future when they start voting for all these idiotic, massive spending projects. I hope he calls them out. And then Sean Morrow, he votes no for it too. He didn't really give a reason though. So I don't know what Sean Morrow's reason for voting no on it. I would think he would have been more supportive of this, just given some of his other votes on city council. But again, I don't know anything about this guy, really. He's kind of a chameleon on the city council. And I don't mean that in a bad way. He just I don't really know where he's going to go one way or another on anything. I don't know what his principles are that he's going to vote yay or nay on anything. It's always a surprise. So anyway, finally, the last thing that came up in the finance committee was the market survey that I talked about before, which they're going to pay $8,000 for. Yep, we're just going to throw $8,000 at this firm over here for a market survey that's really not going to tell us one thing or another at all, but we're going to throw $8,000 at it. But Stevens Point businesses will decide whether you get your $5,000. Whatever. Yeah, it's all pretty ridiculous. I like Tori Jennings less and less every time she opens her mouth, it seems. I must have agreed with her on things in the past. I'm sure she's not been 100% wrong on everything, but good grief. The fact that she engages in so much lying and implying. That's what she does a lot. It's very manipulative. It's very deceitful. And I do not respect people who try to do things like that. Anyway, that's all I got for this week on city government. I'll look over my notes. Yes, that is it. I feel like I wanted to talk about a couple of news points too, but I should have done that earlier. I feel like there was I know what I wanted to talk about. RoboCop. Did you know? I saw an article from Wisconsin Public Radio. Get this. The city of Detroit did this crowdfunding project that started back in 2011 or something to build this giant RoboCop statue. The reason they did this is because Philadelphia did this with Rocky. They put up a big Rocky Balboa statue, and I guess Detroit's really sucking these days, and they are trying to come up with these revitalization projects. So they financed this massive 2-ton RoboCop sculpture, or metal sculpture, and it was supposed to go into the Detroit science exhibit or something, some science museum. Okay, it was supposed to go in there. Well, anyway, as the project was nearing completion, the museum said that they no longer wanted it. So now they have no home for this massive 2-ton RoboCop statue. The mayor decided to just put it out there. Hey, send that thing to Stevens Point. And the reason for that is because the actor in RoboCop, the guy who played RoboCop, and he's been some other movies too, Peter Weller, is from Stevens Point. That actor's from Stevens Point. I actually know people who are related to him. And that's pretty cool. And the mayor decided that if Detroit didn't want it, they could bring it over here. Look, Detroit's going to want to put it up somewhere. The whole crowdfunding thing, probably a lot of those donors were from Detroit. They're going to want to keep it there. But can you imagine if we get this massive RoboCop sculpture? I think that would be pretty cool to just stick it somewhere. where everybody can see it. I don't know. I just thought that was like a cool little news item. I don't know that a lot of people know about it yet because I don't think it's been reported in the local press. I just happened to catch it on some Wisconsin public radio article, and I thought that was pretty cool. And I wanted to just say that I thought that was cool. And if we get RoboCop, that would be amazing. But that was about all I had to talk about. The Beelan stuff, the firefighter, like that whole case is going on. There's really nothing to talk about there. But that was really about all I had. So you guys who are in the chat, if you have any final questions or words to say about anything, speak now, because I'm shutting this thing down. Yeah, Tori Jennings, though. I just, I never really had any thoughts about her whatsoever, other than, yeah, I probably disagree with her politically on, various issues, whatever. But man, when she decided to shut down our permit when we applied to turn our duplex into an Airbnb, when she tried to manipulate that entire process to squeeze us out, I took that personally. And from that moment on, I did not like this woman. I think she's a horrible person. And the more I see her pop up here, the more horrible she gets, I swear. So whatever. I mean, it's not just a matter of disagreeing with her politics. I think she's a legit horrible person. But anyway, that's all I had. No new comments. I'm going to shut this thing down. I will see you guys next week. City Council meetings next week, so I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about then. And I'll see you next Friday, 7 o'clock. Later. Cheers, guys.